I'll close us out here with my last spoiler and sleeper projection. And guys, I'm going to go, I teased this earlier. I'm going to go right up the road from where, actually right in between where the three of us are right now. I'm going to go to Waco and talk about the Baylor Bears because it feels like we've forgotten two things as a college football just populace. We forgot that the Bears surprisingly went 8-4 last year, and they were listed on the Big 12 scenario page going into the final week. There was a scenario where Baylor could have made the Big 12 championship going into the last week. It was a wild scenario, but it was existed nonetheless. And I think we've forgotten about Sawyer Robertson and just the absolute revelation that he was for the Baylor offense that was scuffling, to put it frankly, right? We were not expecting Robertson to be the guy last year. We were all about DeQuan Finn, and rightfully so because he had balled out at Toledo. But Sawyer Robertson comes in and just absolutely turns the season around for Baylor by the way that he played. He's coming into this year. We're going to have a QB ranking show coming up in a few weeks. But for me right now, he's a top 3, probably quarterback in the conference. And I think it's a really firm foundation to start on for Baylor. You know, Dave Aranda is going to have the defense ready to go. He's been slowly but surely building that side of the ball back up from where they were when he started. And they're number 11 in the country and number 2 in the Big 12 in returning production. So they've got a lot of pieces coming back on both sides of the ball from a team, like I said, that was right there, had an actual championship scenario in the last week of the season last year. But spoiler-wise, this is maybe my long shot pick to make the Big 12 title game really, really early because of the way the schedule sets up for them. I really love this schedule for Baylor. Experienced team, like I mentioned. They host Auburn week 1. I think that is probably the most slept on non-conference game in college football right now, because what that would mean for the Baylor program to get a win over an SEC school. I don't know the last time Baylor hosted an SEC school in Waco. I don't know if it's ever happened at their new stadium, at McLean Stadium. But if they can find a way to knock off an SEC school at home week 1 on a Friday night, that's just going to set the bar for me much higher for this year for Baylor. So a big game to open the season against Auburn. They go to SMU week 2, so maybe the toughest 1-2 back-to-back for any team in the country, hosting Auburn and then going to SMU. And then their Big 12 schedule, honestly, guys, sets up pretty well. They host Arizona State and Kansas State before their bye. And after the bye, it's pretty manageable in terms of just teams that you expect to, be towards the top of that conference. After the bye week, they're at TCU. That's going to be a tough game. The only other tough road game that they have potentially is at Arizona. And Arizona is going to be a team that, while they have the quarterback figured out, is obviously we saw what happened on the field last year and they're losing T-Mac. So the home road splits in conference are there. They host the Houston team that we're also really high on to end the year. Love the home road splits. Love the opportunities week 1 and 2 against Auburn and SMU to make a statement. And they're a really interesting team to look at from the standpoint of a flyer bet to win the Big 12.
They're a team that, if they play their cards right, by the end of September, we're talking about them as the top 15 team probably. Because you can go out there, beat Auburn, beat SMU, beat Arizona State. Those would be some massive statements to start off your season and obviously get a lot of attention. So I definitely like this pick as there's a possibility. There's a real lane where, Baylor could make this thing work. I'm really, really curious just because I haven't seen the consistency there outside of, I guess, one kind of magic year. Really just haven't seen the consistency there for Baylor, but they're in the right spot, and there is a power vacuum kind of in the Big 12 right now. Why not Baylor is a decent question to ask, right? Why can't Baylor be the team that fills up that power vacuum now that so many teams have lost so much? They're bringing back the quarterback, so why not?
I think if Baylor can get to the quarterback this year, that would be a massive add for them. They were bottom half of the country in sacks and tackles for loss last year. They hit the portal hard, brought in some new edge rushers, a couple of at least one new defensive tackle coming over from A&M. Big kid, space eater. So I think if they can plug the run and get to the quarterback, that helps tremendously. They also bring in a true speedster on the outside and Kobe Prentice coming over from Alabama. So yeah, you've got Sawyer Robertson, who's got one more year to take the top off of defense. And then guys, this could be the start of a real run maybe for Baylor, Garrett, to your point, where if they can fill the power vacuum and start to get some consistency going. They've got Walker White that came over from Auburn in the transfer portal. So, probably his ship next year at the quarterback position. We've gone from Dave Aranda being the first coach out potentially in the betting odds to how high can he go now at Baylor. And I think that's an awesome development. Aranda, by all accounts, is just a great guy. Maybe a little stuffy and slow to adjust to things, but once he gets comfortable, his players love playing for him, and he's obviously a really good football coach. So I'm rooting for Baylor here. I think this is a big time opportunity that they have to make a statement in the Big 12. Especially with teams like Arizona State and BYU, and Texas Tech trying to claw up into that upper echelon as well. Utah maybe on their way out. Really, really cool opportunity for the folks in Waco.
It's an absolute travesty they're not playing Tech in the regular season.
It
is.
is.
I don't know who decided that at the Big 12 office, but that is an egregious error in the schedule.
Not having the Bud Bowl, that's a Big 12 staple. There's no reason to lose it.
But
it's the first time since 1956 that the teams won't play. I mean, what are we doing?
It's terrible.
Thank God we're preserving traditional rivalries with Cincinnati and UCF and Arizona State, though. Thank goodness those are still on the schedule.
Hate that from the Big 12 office, which is just down the street. I might have to go rap on some doors.
Gracious, how about